I found my way home across the Grand Mirage.
Yes, hi, it's the Alison Arngrim Show, and I'm Alison Arngrim. Yes, some of you may remember me as evil Nellie Olson from Little House on the Prairie. But tonight I'm Alison Arngrim, and this is the Alison Arngrim Show. And here on the Alison Arngrim Show, we talk about things that make you feel good. The movies and the TV shows that made us feel good, and the people who made them. And people who are doing things now to make the world a better and more interesting place. And yes, I have one of those tonight. You know, I get excited when I have my friends on. And as soon as I put out word that he was coming on tonight, I had a bunch of people go, yes. So Howie Green. So we're going, who's Howie Green? Many of you know, because you know me and you've like bought autographed things from me or been to autograph shows, that there exists a prairie princess pony, she has the evil look of Nellie Olson in her eyes, as well as blonde curls. Howie Green. And you've been to my website, many of you, bonnetheads.com. That is a creation of Howie Green and Howie Green Design. I met Howie about 100 years ago in the 80s. And there you are. Yes, that's terrifying. We actually did a movie together. I met Howie, became great friends, and he said, why don't you have a website? This is 100 years ago, and websites were like a new thing. And he took a bunch of pictures and made a website. And now, I mean, he is this huge artist. He has done so many things. Elephants, cows, artwork for companies, the city of Boston, you name it. So with me is author, artist, creator of so many things, Howie Green.
Hi. Thank you for having me. Lovely to see you always.
When did we meet? 1980 what?
1984. October of 1984.
That's terrifying that you remember exactly when. I can't.
Well, now remember, because it was my first trip to LA. I was working for Jamie at the Laugh Factory. And I had been out in the Valley working on the magazine. I was art director of Laugh Factory magazine. And I came into the club at night, and I would stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning with Jamie watching these lunatics get up on stage. And for some reason, you were there early. I think that was like an 8:30 or 9 o'clock.
Or I was emceeing or something crazy. Yeah.
And you were standing over in the corner by the door. This pretty blonde girl was over there. I wonder who that is. Now, I had never seen Little House on the Prairie, but I knew who Nellie Olson was because everybody knew who Nellie Olson was. But I'd never seen the show. It wasn't a show I was interested in. So Jamie being Jamie, said, Howie, I want you to meet your favorite actresses here.
They're like, what? Okay. I think you said that to everyone. Yes.
Yes, he said that to everyone. And so he introduced me to you, and you said, you have no idea who I am, do you? And I said, I'm sorry, I have no idea. But you were standing in the corner, you were reading a book by Milan Kundera, The Unbearable Lightness of Being, which I had just finished reading. So we started talking, and we've never stopped.
And which is weird because I came in one day in the middle of the day in the afternoon to like pick something up. And there was a girl standing there with red hair reading Milan Kundera's Unbearable Lightness of Being, which I think was the copy you gave her.
Yes, I gave her that. Yes.
Because you're from Boston and you live next door to the Phelan family, all of whom are like tuning in right now because Brenda and Arlene were like, oh my God, Howie's on. And that was Sharon. And Sharon was working as a waitress at the Laugh Factory and doing stuff for Jamie. And I'm like, how are you reading the same book I'm reading? Oh my God, that's so weird. And we talked and we wound up being roommates for like some insane amount of time.
Yeah,
and then it turns out you guys like live like practically next door to each other in Boston.
Well, not next door to each other. I lived on the other side of Newton. But yeah, no. Her sister was going out with my sort of unofficial son and in high school and whatever. But Sharon was sleeping on my couch at that point, I think, and she said, I'm going to go to LA. And I said, well, you should go to the Laugh Factory and tell Jamie you're a friend of mine. And he hired her. And then you guys met.
You're responsible for everything. It's why.
I do have this weird sort of influence on people's lives. I don't know. I just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time a lot.
And so we're sitting on my couch in my living room, and he says, you don't have a website. And this is the late 80s. This is like websites. This is when people first were getting websites. We were all like, people were going on Live Journal to talk about things. It was that era. And I was like, I didn't know your website. Did I have a computer? I think I had a computer.
I had a computer.
So, but it was like very basic then. And I said, and you said, give me some photos and stuff. And it's like, yeah, like actual physical photos. Here you go. And you put up this thing. And as you said, you had like interns and students. So you said something to
Yes.
do on everybody's lunch hour for kicks. And you put up this website, the official Nellie Olson Confessions of a Prairie Bitch, Alison Arngrim website.
Yes. That was designed by me and my assistant, Jana. So I got to give her credit because I know she's watching too. So.
Oh, yeah. Hi. And now, of course, we have linked to it with bonnetheads.com, which is easier and people that can remember that one. But it's adorable. And it's all just like fabulous stuff, like everything from my life. And then also like, hey, where to buy stuff and what's going on. And during all of this madness, then there was the prairie pony.
The Prairie Princess Pony.
Things, Princess Pony. And you're responsible for all of this stuff. But the weird part is, everyone knows I had a book, Confessions of a Prairie Bitch. Everybody knows I had a show, Confessions of a Prairie Bitch. But it was early on, because this was in 87.
Yeah,
you
back in the 80s.
This poster, which is hysterical with the drawing. It's all backwards, kids, but you can see the drawing there. This poster says Alison Arngrim, the Prairie Bitch 87 tour. I didn't have a tour in 87. There was no tour. There was no Prairie Bitch tour because it wasn't the Confessions of Prairie Bitch. And I wasn't even touring in 87. And you just made up this mythical poster like you had this vision.
I could see the future. I said this vision.
Saw the future.
And I said, you should go out on tour.
You should go out on tour, and you should do Prairie Bitch. And then next thing you know, you did the website, and it's Confessions of a Prairie Bitch. I'm like, that's a really good title. And then like a billion years later, I go on tour, and it's like, what am I calling the show? Confessions of a Prairie Bitch. And then they come to me like, so this book, they're writing me the book deal. What's it called? Confessions.
Perfect, right? It was perfect. It was perfect.
So, you are the man behind the scenes. You are responsible for all of this craziness. Yeah. And just because you were there, just because you went,
I have an idea. Yeah.
I have an idea. And one day I was sitting.
I have a lot of ideas. Yeah.
I was in your living room, and you were in your bathrobe painting little ceramic horses. Or as you said, I'm getting all this money to draw peace symbols on horses' butts. This is what I do now. And
this is what I was. Yeah.
Gorgeous. I'm a grown man and I'm painting. But it was this whole thing for, what's the name of it? They do these horses.
The Trail of the Painted Ponies. It's a collectible company, and they do ponies by artists. So I had done a pop art pony with my art on it. And then they said, do you have any other ideas? And I went, oh, hey, how about the Prairie Princess Pony, which is how we ended up doing that one.
You did kind of a Woodstocky one. It was also musical notes, piece and music and stuff.
Oh, I've done a lot of them. I've done a lot of them.
And there's and you had like different ones. It's like, well, this is the one they reproduced, like the cheaper one, and this is the one, and then these are the commissioned, personally painted ones you did for like an insane amount of money, if I recall. I was like, oh, really?
Yes.
You're like, no, really, they paid them. Okay. And then you said, so you said, well, what if Alison Arngrim, and what if it was like Nellie, was just the Prairie Princess inspired by, and I was like, genius. And we went back and forth, and I'm like, oh, make the flower bigger, and can there be more pink?
Yes.
But
and you were, yes.
You not only made the pony with blue eyes and blonde hair, with what Nellie would have gone for in decor, but what I've loved about it is if you look at the pony's face,
right?
The pony is judging you. There's an actual facial expression. Not everyone can do that.
I know. Well, it had to be. That was Nellie. That was we can make it pretty, so it'll be, it'll be prairie-like, but we got to have the Nellie look. We got to have the look in there.
And there were numbered editions. We signed them. It was awesome, and I still have a couple. But how did you do that? Anyone can take a pony and say, okay, I gave it blonde hair and a pretty saddle. How did you make this pony?
Well, because it was really.
It's like, how the hell did you do that?
Well, we were going back. You and I were going back and forth about what it should look like, and you were saying maybe a little more pink or some flowers or whatever. So we were kind of going back and forth. I said, yeah, but it's got to have something that's Nellie. And so the eyes, the expression on the eyes, it was like, well, we can have her just giving you that drop dead look. So it's a really pretty pony giving you the look of like, get out of my way or I'll just run you right over. So
I don't know that everyone can do that just in physically painting, but that they can make that happen.
Well,
that's why
I have drawn you and painted you a number of times, so I know your expression.
Right. It's all teeth. I love that one. So yeah, okay. So you're a genius. We've established this, and then
I tried.
you did the book. you're this claimed it Jazz Fish Zen on your website. It's all about how you're famous for Jazz Fish Zen. I don't know. Are you famous for Jazz Fish Zen? You're famous for so many other things.
Well, Jazz Fish Zen has developed a global cult following.
Adventures in Mambo Land, yes.
Adventures in Mambo Land, yeah. And I get pictures from people on a pretty regular basis who find the book somewhere and just kind of fall in love with it. And then they get a tattoo of something from the book on their hand. Or I've gotten probably 20 or 30 people over the years who send me pictures of tattoos of jazzfish and from all over the world, from Croatia.
Pictures I put up, but like I have the book in my hand, so it's it's stuff like this, and it's really tripping. It's really gorgeous, and that I can see where it would catch on, but like it's very Peter Max, and people talk about the artist Peter Max. People remember from the 60s with those posters. But you did meet Peter Max, and he was an influence. You did.
Oh, I worked with them. No, I worked with them. Yeah, no, I was art director of New Age Journal in the late 80s, about the same time I was working on Laugh Factory. I was also art director of a magazine that was based here in Boston called New Age Journal. It was a very popular magazine, and there was a funny article about Ron and Nancy Reagan at the time when Nancy Reagan consulted the astrologer. Remember that was a big scandal, right? So I had done a little Peter Max-like illustration of Ron and Nancy gazing up into the stars, and so Peter saw it, and he was on sort of the path to make a big comeback because he'd been on a sabbatical for like the better part of a decade, and so he called me and said, "Hey, you want to work together on some stuff?" So we ended up doing. He did 3 issues of New Age Journal with me. He did like probably 20 paintings and illustrations. I went down to his studio and hung out with him. He did his first sports painting for me of the the Celtics. He did the Larry Bird.
The Peter Max Celtics painting.
Yeah, the Celtics painting, which was his first sport painting. And then I curated a show of his posters up at the University of New Hampshire. So I worked with him for the better part of 4 or 5 years on and off on a variety of projects. Yes, he was a huge influence. I loved his work. I had discovered him before he was famous. Like when he was working as an illustrator, I knew who he was because I liked his work. And then in 1967, he just blew up and became world famous.
Everything with Peter Max. Everyone, it was either Peter Max or people trying to pretend to be Peter Max and paint like the same stuff. And as you can see with this top I'm wearing, it's still influencing things today.
Influencing.
The whole psychedelic thing. And
so I was working on the jazzfish idea about the time that I was working with Peter, and he was very supportive and said, "It's just you can do this, or just don't copy me, obviously exactly, but it's just a style, so go with it." And at the time I was working in another style, so I kind of crawled my way back into that. I was like, well, maybe I'll try a little bit, and it just worked. And so he was very encouraging at the time.
And your style is like that. It is very Peter Max and psychedelic.
Yeah, well, it's sort of Peter Max meets Yellow Submarine. People think Peter Max did Yellow Submarine, but he didn't.
No, he did not.
He did not.
Who did?
A German illustrator named Heinz Eidelman did Yellow Submarine. But Yellow Submarine was like one of those pivotal moments in my life. It was when you could sit in the movie theater and stay and watch it again. Because my friends and I saw it and we were thinking, we're not leaving the theater. I don't know what I just saw, but I got to watch it again, because it just was like mind blowing. And so, so I've always loved that style. And what's funny now is that style has become a accepted 20th century design style. You got Art Deco, Art Nouveau, modern, Memphis, psychedelic, pop art. It's just one of those design styles. So I continue to work in that style, even though I can draw like other stuff too, but because it's very popular now. I sell a lot of my work.
When it started, I remember as a kid, when it started, people just went, "Oh, that's that hippie psychedelia stuff." But now, it's absolutely recognized. Oh, it's that style. It's that Peter Max thing.
Well, it's still that hippie. Yeah, still that hippie psychedelic stuff.
You have a quote like Peter Max saying, "Well, it's just a style. Go ahead." That's something about people telling you they love his colors, and how he said, "My colors, they don't belong to me." Colors are out there. Colors. I just use them all.
Exactly. I wish there were more. I could use more of them. Exactly. Yeah. People always say, "Oh, I love your colors." I'm like, "They're not mine. You can buy them. You can go to the art supply store and buy them. It's a matter of how you put them together and what you do with them."
Now, you were not supposed to be an artist. Your family had other plans.
Oh, my family had lots of anything but an artist. I could have been a baseball player, but probably not. Yeah, no, my parents were not encouraging to me at all in any way, shape, or form. I used to have to draw. Well, I would do my homework in my bedroom, and I had a desk with a flip top, so I would flip the top up and I'd be drawing. When I heard my mother coming down the hallway, I would put the top down and go back to doing my homework, or I would do it in bed at night with the flashlight. I would draw. So it was totally forbidden fruit. The whole idea of being an artist was like forbidden because my parents were absolutely dead set against me being an artist, but I was going to show them by gum.
Weren't you supposed to be a violinist or something weird?
No, there was a violinist
It
in
was
our family. One
acceptable.
of my grandmother's relative cousins was a violinist.
So
But
that would have been
no,
okay. That would have been okay.
that would have been okay. Well, that was a job, but being an artist, what was that? That was like crazy. Then I was going to be maybe a rock star because I used to sing with my friends groups. But in the 60s, everybody sang with their friends groups, so it was no big deal. So yeah, but the art thing seemed to be, and then I didn't get accepted the first time I applied to art school. I did not get
Really? Because
accepted.
you're like insanely successful commercial and artist, and people pay you money to do stuff, and they were like, no, you have
Yeah, they were
no
like,
talent.
no,
But
no. So I had to go to night. Well, my mother was sort of like, haha, I told you. But I went to night school for a year, and I worked at a department store in downtown Rochester, New York, right across from the theater that we saw you at in September. Literally right across the
that's
street
right.
was
When
where
I
I
was
worked.
there for the Fringe Festival, and you said,
Yeah.
no, that's the place. This is where I have. Yes.
Yeah, I used to work literally right across the street from where that was in a big department store called
Well,
B.
right, because
Foreman
the,
and
the
Company.
building where I was doing my show used to be a bank.
Right.
Then
Right.
it went away, and they
It
tore
just-
it all out and put in a theater. So yeah.
Yeah, there used to be a mall right across the street, Midtown Plaza, and I worked in B. Foreman and Company. I went to night school for a year, and I got my way into art school, and so suddenly I was in art school, and my parents were like, okay, well, you can live at home, but we're not gonna. You have to pay for your own tuition. So I did.
Wow.
But in those days, tuition was like lunch money. It was a
Yeah,
dollar and a
you could
half.
have a part-time job after school and pay for
I did.
tuition back in.
I paid my tuition with a summer job.
Your
so,
parents
it was
would not even pay for you to go to art school. They're like,
Nope.
hell no.
You
So
can
like
live
you
home.
were under the covers, like people would read comic books or porn, or be like hiding the dirty magazines from their mother in the this was you drawing pictures.
I was drawing Dick Tracy and Archie and Veronica, and Brenda Starr was really hard to draw. I was trying to
Brenda
do her.
Starr with the red hair. Oh my God, I
Yes.
love Brenda Starr.
And there was a guy who Leonard Starr, who was the last artist on the Little Orphan Annie strip currently running, but he was like a big time cartoonist, and I wanted to be a cartoonist when I was young. That was the only art that I knew was cartoon, and a lot of people read comic books and newspaper stuff. So my dad said, well, if you can draw as good as Leonard Starr, then you can be an artist. But Leonard Starr was like very realistic and really like the top echelon of draftsmen for cartoons. And so to this day, I remember that my father saying, if you could draw like Leonard Starr. So now on Facebook, I follow the Leonard Starr Appreciation Society, and they post pictures of his work every day. What's funny is I'm reading right now, every day they post a strip, and I'm reading the strip from 1962, which would have been when I was looking at him in the newspaper every day. So yeah, yeah.
So can you draw as well as Leonard Starr now?
Oh, good Lord, no. I probably could. Yes, I probably
You could do the style, like you could manage some of that style in your stuff.
Yeah, he just had a gift for anatomy and humans and characters. He did one called Mary Worth Backstage. It was a soap opera about an actress backstage. That was Leonard Starr. And then he did a couple other ones. Yeah, I think he actually owned Orphan Annie for a while. I think he actually bought the rights to it. So yeah, but that was me under the covers in secret drawing. And I had a bus ride every morning. We lived way out on the prairie. You were a character. I lived out on the prairie, and so I had an hour.
You were in New York. You were in
way out outside of Buffalo in a little town called Clarence Center, which is literally 5 miles from nowhere. And so I had an hour bus ride to school in the morning and an hour bus ride at night on the way home. So I used to draw in my secret sketchbook, which is hidden inside my notebook, so my mother wouldn't find it and take it away from me and yell at me and punish me. Yeah.
It's like
it
so
was like,
insane. I mean, you hear about people encouraging their children nowadays. Nowadays, it's all the rage to encourage children and creativity. And you hear about people becoming great artists. Oh, yeah, I want to encourage my kid if they're art. Do you think that maybe it actually makes the better artist if people go, don't do it, don't do it?
well, in my case, I think it did. Yeah. Well, the funny thing is that when in the '80s, when I was doing pretty well, my mother sort of came around and she used to run the art show on the lake that they lived on. She took over. She became the coordinator for the craft fair art show thing that on the lake. So she totally came over to the dark side and accepted art into her life. And yeah, and my dad was always, he never knew what I did, but he was always interested in it once I started doing it professionally. Like I used to bring stuff home from school and they would sit from college when I was in art school and they would see me downstairs in the basement working on some crazy project and they would go, who's going to pay you to do this? This is nuts, but they were survivors of the Great Depression. So you figure, okay, well, to them, you had to have a good job.
Something secure that paid well. Yes.
Yes. And to this day, I don't know what any of my relatives did for a living. I have no idea. They had a good job.
Yes, what's he got? He's got a job.
He's got a job. He's got a good job. Yeah. So it was definitely forbidden fruit in my case. And then when I got into school and I was with other artists and with my friends who were incredibly talented people, it was like, oh, this is me. So I was off and running and never stopped. So, yeah.
But that makes sense because then it's an act of rebellion. And
you got it.
People say shouldn't art be transgressive and rebellious? So if you're doing it and sneaking around, it's an act of rebellion. You've been told whatever you do, don't draw those comments.
Don't draw. Yeah. Well, somebody said I didn't like Joni Mitchell or somebody like that said art is a way to run away without leaving home.
Oh my
God! I thought, wow, that's perfect. That's just perfect. Yeah. But yeah. So in art school was. Well, we talked about this about should you go to art school or not go to art school? And I say, well, what I got out of art school was the people that I met. I had a couple of good teachers and a lot of my friends. What I actually learned in art school, I couldn't tell you, nothing. But the people that I met were fantastic, and I'm still friends with several of them. And so it was worth going to start to think of yourself as an artist. Like, how does an artist work? What does an artist do? Because I had no clue, 18 years old, I had no clue. So I think if you spend 4 years with a bunch of other schmoes who have no clue either, you start to figure out what it is that artists do and how you
get some history of art, some context, I guess. Like, oh, my drawings are like this other person. Somebody does this somewhere.
Yes. Oh, Monet, who's he? Van Gogh, who's that? Oh, other people have done this before. I'm not the first one. So yeah, it gives you some context. And ultimately, it's very humbling, because like no matter how good you think you are, there's always Monet, there's always Van Gogh. There's always Peter.
You make the good contacts, you make the friends, so it's worth it for that. But you don't really learn to be an artist. It is one of those you got it or you don't.
Yes, I think so. Because by the end of second year in art school, half the class was gone.
Really?
I think we started with like 300 kids in freshman class, and we graduated with like 48. So it whittles itself down because people get into school because they've been doing art for fun their whole life. You get into art school and suddenly like, this is a lot of work. This is hard being an artist. My God, I had no idea. And people just dropped by the wayside. And so by the time I graduated with a class of like 48 or how many it was, I know it wasn't 50 because we all fit on a poster. But people whittle themselves down really quickly because they realize what it's going to take to get to be where you need to be, or that there's that idea of in order to get your skills up to a professional level, you have to spend 10,000 hours, practicing your craft. That's this theory floating around these days.
That's like 10,000 hours. So I've heard 10, that. Yes.
Yeah.
And so, you go, how long is that? Jesus.
Yeah, 10,000. Right? It's like, so that's art school plus another decade. Okay. But yeah, and people do art for fun. But if you're going to take the crazy path that I took, it's get your hiking boots on and fill up your canteen because we're climbing the mountain. So yeah, it's work, but it's great.
But it did work, and you did become an artist, and you've done so many different things. I mean, with these insane colors and these things, you've done stuff like cows and elephants. There's all these things where they have like a city project or children. Now, wait, speaking of cows, hold on. I have, I kept I have the jacket.
Oh, you have the jacket. That's right. Oh, there you go.
You knew I liked cats.
And
Yes, this is a beautiful jean jacket I have with this is painted right on. This isn't something from a store. Y'all just painted it right on the jacket.
Yep, I did. Well, then that was before I did the cow parade. Yeah, no, I love painting on anything. I like just putting my art on anything. So I did in 2006, the cow parade came to Boston. I painted 3 cows, and 2 of them were made into collectible figures. And and being an inveterate collector, that just made my little heart so happy. It's like, look, I have a collectible cow. And then I did the ponies, and then I painted an elephant in Bangkok, Thailand, for the elephant parade in Bangkok, and that money goes to elephant sanctuaries. And then right now I'm designing a jaguar for the jaguar parade in New York City this spring.
There's a jaguar parade.
It's coming to New York City in the spring or fall, whatever it is. Yeah.
Elephant parade. I'm like, okay, there's a jaguar parade. Who decides these things?
There's a company. Whoever does these parades. I don't know. The cow parade was the first one, but there's been lots of other additional similar.
There you go. So now so everybody's got it.
Yeah. So I like the ones where the money goes to charity. Like I just did some NFTs. Are you aware of NFTs? Non-fungible tokens.
We need to do an NFT. I said we got to do an NFT together. We need to do some Nelly themed NFT. I want one.
I just did some NFTs for an elephant sanctuary fund thing. So those are going live in 8 days. And people can buy them.
Explain what an NFT is to everyone, because people go, oh God, the NFT, Bitcoin and blockchain and non-fungible. Yeah.
Well, as much as I can understand, because I have to admit, I'm a little hazy on the whole process. I'm still very much on the fence about how I feel about these things, but because they're very controversial. But a non-fungible token is the art equivalent of like cryptocurrency. It's an image that lives only in the blockchain, in a server somewhere, and it's a digital art form, and you buy it, and people like collecting them, and you can buy them and sell them. So it's going to be
which is kind of crazy, because art is a picture of something. Generally, it's not the thing; it's a painting of a thing,
right?
And you buy it, so this is the real thing, painting. And then there's lithographs and limited edition photos and prints of paintings, which are then not even a painting of the thing. They're a print of the painting of thing. And now someone's like, oh, this is new. And not really. It's like there's the limited edition prints, except now you can't even touch it or hang it on your wall. It's like it's in space. No, you can pull it up and look at it on your computer.
Yes, and you can show it to other people. Now, the ones I did are sort of a second generation NFTs. You buy it, and on day one, there's this poor little elephant who's all beat up. And every day, she gets better. So my art takes over more and more of the elephant. So by the 7th or 8th day, you have this beautiful pop art elephant that you own. But they're starting to morph into different interactive formats and things. So I was sort of excited to do that.
Just what you described with the elephant sounds about 100 times more creative than any of the NFT I've seen, which has been like, there's the monkeys, like, look, a monkey. There's just like pictures of things. I'm like, how is this a big deal? So that already sounds like way more clever.
Well, that's why I got it. Well, because people have been after me, because NFTs have only been around for about a year. And so people have been after me to take my art and turn it into non-fungible tokens. I just like saying fungible. And so I kept saying, I don't know. So this is the first one, because the money goes to elephant sanctuaries, which is near and dear to my heart. And the fact that they're sort of interactive, and there's more to it than just a picture. So I thought that was cool.
And it's the same thing I'm reading about. I'm going, really? Because the thing and the Bitcoin and like how long you have to run servers for until smoke comes out of them, and oh my God.
Well, exactly. Yeah. So
it's insane. But I want, because it's the new thing, and I've generally managed to tap into some segment of whatever the heck was going on.
Oh, me too.
Like,
me too. Yeah.
And I'll have an NFT.
Yeah. So we have to find a place to make an NFT. We have to do a Confessions of a Furry Bitch NFT.
Right, because we've done a lot of art. We've done the pony, and then many people have seen the 4x4 painting, because one of my most popular, I have a little laying around, my most popular autograph pictures is this one I call the Nelly 4x4, which is the 4 faces of it. It was a photo session to get publicity shots of me as Nelly, and I was kind of voguing. and they
Yes,
liked it so much
they're
they made a thing of 4. And that's the
they're
thing
great
interesting
things.
autographing is press photo fairs. And
Yeah,
you did a sort of an Andy Warhol-esque, again in a
yep,
style thing,
yep.
pop art thing of that. And it's brilliant. You did the original painting, and then you had the copies, and you had the thing, and then we did the T-shirt.
Yeah, all that money went to one of your charities.
And that went to Protect. I think
Yeah.
maybe it's an NFT of that.
Yeah, well, perfect. Let's do it. Let's do it. We got to find a place.
The thing already, which is, see, I just like kind of like, I want an NFT of what? I don't care. Why? I don't know. I just want one. You want a whole series of them, and it's just a whole business plan? No, I just want to know I made one. I just want to make one. Go over there.
We'll take that picture and we could turn it into an NFT.
Yeah, it's just a bucket list thing. I'm gonna go, and I have an NFT. Damn it, yes.
Sure, absolutely.
And I don't. Well, and where else would I go for my NFT but you?
Yeah, and so you just have to find somebody who can quote unquote mint that. So they take the artwork and they wave their magic wand over it and put it somewhere in the.
Well, they're all going to call after this, going, "Oh my God, we can get on the Nelly NFT."
Call Alison and let's do an NFT. We have a painting. We can turn it into an NFT. Perfect.
We're ready to go. We've got the painting.
We've got it. It's ready.
It's
in my studio. It's in my studio.
Yes. This is insane. You've done so much. You've done like a lot. You did a lot of website design too, not just mine was like you said, you and your friend are like, oh, here, let's just toss this off. But you did websites for like hospitals. You did corporate, huge, monstrous, giant things.
Oh, I did. Well, I had a studio. I had a studio in Boston's trendy Back Bay for almost 20 years, and a lot of what we did was interactive stuff in the 90s. And when the World Wide Web was the thing in 1994, I went, what are you talking about? And as soon as I saw it, I went, ooh, yeah, I want to do that. So we did, I think, well over 300 websites. I did the first LL Bean website. I did we consulted on J. Jill's website. We did websites for Verizon, for Texas Instruments, for Hewlett Packard, for Putnam Funds. I did websites and interactive things. I did a interactive presentation for the president of Coca-Cola. I mean, in CBS TV, we did all kinds of interactive website, CD-ROM. Remember when those were cool? There was shiny interactive media. That was a cool.
It was a big one. Mail
all kinds of people. Because in the 90s, there weren't that many people doing them. So I was on the hot list. We'll call Howie Green.
Right. Who are they going to call? It was like 10 people. So
right, exactly. Nowadays, everybody does them. So it's like, I'm doing something different. But yeah, we did a lot of, I had like 7 or 8 people working for me at one point. And we were just cranking stuff out, including your website. But yeah, websites for the Holy Cross College and University of Massachusetts. And I've forgotten half the ones we did. Yeah, we had a whole
it was like Boston College. Hospital or something. It was crazy. It was
we did couple hospitals, and yeah, just big, huge corporate websites. And I worked with International Thompson Publishing, who's here in Boston, who I'd never even heard of, but they're one of those companies that owns like every other company. So I was working with a little publishing company doing book covers, and they were owned by International Thompson Publishing. So it turns out International Thompson Publishing wanted all their companies to have websites. This is like 1995. So I worked with like 20 of these publishing companies to get them to stop using faxes and let's do websites now. That was the whole thing. So yeah. So it was. I mean, it was an amazing ride for quite a few years to work at that level. It was pretty incredible. But as soon as I saw the web, I just knew like this is it.
Well, that's the thing. You've always been like Bazoom right there. Okay, it's comic books. Okay, it's the web, and that's why NFT got my NFT.
NFT, right?
Didn't you do like furniture for restaurants, like a couple restaurant chains?
Oh, I did the whole restaurant. There was a place called Kahunaville.
Kahunaville.
Yes, my friend Dave Tuttleman, who is a restaurateur, and now he's growing legal marijuana in Colorado. But Dave was part owner in an art gallery that I was showing in here in Boston, and Dave was starting up. He was going to do a theme restaurant, and he said, "You want to work with me on it?" So I just like jumped down the rabbit hole of that, and so we designed everything. I designed a volcano, an interactive volcano, outside the building with the logo on it. Yeah, and we designed everything, the logos and the menus and the merchandise and the thing and the whole crazy. I designed these 8-foot tiki statues that stood outside of Kahunaville. It was like the whole theme restaurant thing. So much fun to do. We did that, and then we did. There's a chain in the sort of the southern part, southeastern part of the United States called Mellow Mushroom, and they're like a
Mellow
hippie.
mushroom.
They're like a hippie pizza place, right? Kind of thing. So their whole aesthetic is like me, So it's perfect. So
Mellow mushroom pizza. They're very good. That's like you're in
they're
Tennessee.
very
It's like
good.
we're getting pizza. Do you want to call mellow mushroom? Yes, yes.
The Cosmic Karma Pizza is my all-time favorite. But I worked with a couple of the Mellow Mushroom stores. We did. I did 4 or 5 murals and literally hundreds of individual paintings that got hung up in the Mellow Mushrooms, and even ceramic tiles in the bathroom. So we did sort of, I did a lot of work with that level of stuff, which is really fun to do. Oops, I can't hear you now. Oops, I've lost the audio. Oh dear. Hello. Oh, there. Oh, there you're back.
I'm back.
Oh, hi.
Yeah, it's just all of a sudden woo woo. Can you hear me? Because I
can hear you. Yeah.
Now you're back. Yeah, it just all of a sudden said your Zoom meeting's been muted, and we all went away for a second. It was very surreal. But yeah, you did restaurants and paintings and murals, and then you did all this. You painted like these power boxes in Boston.
Yes,
like
public
baseball.
utility boxes.
I saw
Oh,
this.
not just in Boston, in other cities as well. I love the idea of these. Well, there's supposedly there's 10,000 public utility boxes on the streets of Boston, and that's amazing if you think about it. But you don't even notice them. So some cities started painting them, and I got on the mayor. The mayor saw something I did, and I got invited to paint one of them. And I think I've done 15 or 20 of them at this point. But they did one in Rochester, New York, and we did one in a couple other places. And the mayor then loved my box, Mayor Menino, who was a wonderful character here in Boston, who's no longer with us. But they were redoing the front of Boston City Hall and putting in new doors. So they had this ugly plywood like enclosure, to keep the weather out while they were putting the doors in. So the mayor said, "Hey, get that Howie guy and have him paint the front of this." So I painted the front of Boston City Hall with my brother helped me paint it with a holiday theme with ribbons and things for the front of City Hall. It's like, see, one thing leads to another, right?
But it works because those boxes, I know here they've started painting them because normally they're just gray and blue and ugly. And then they wind up, people draw on them, they tag them, they graffiti them. But if there's some insane art on them, it's like, oh, okay, well, I'll go write my name over here instead. So
exactly, that's exactly what happened. Yeah, we did one last year. There was a program called Tasteful Boston, and it was all about Boston, right? And it was all about Boston food. So I decided, why don't we do Boston used to be the candy capital of America, because Schraff was here, Necco Wafers was here. So they were all at Fannie Farmer. They were all here in Boston. So we painted a box with all the candy that was originated from Boston or is still made here in Boston. So we had it was great. Aiden and my assistant Aiden and I painted this box, and it's right across the street from the Boston Massacre site. So if you're in Boston and you're walking the Freedom Trail and you get to where the Boston Massacre was, just look over across the street, and there's one of my original paintings on the box. It's all Boston candy.
Now, of course, you mentioned this. You are quite the historian also, and in your spare time for kicks, you give tours.
I give tours. I love getting tours.
When I've been there, you've taken me everywhere and like pointed everything out and all this behind you. Now we get the lobster roll sandwich and the thing. But you have a Jeep, and you're one of the only vehicles on your street that can get out in the snow. And you do these like Howie Jeep tour, and it's not like, my understanding, it's not even a whole business. It's just like,
just do it for fun. Well, because there's all these tour buses that run all over Boston. These ducks, the ex-Navy ducks, right? And they're all over Boston, and everybody knows them. But they only show you like the surface stuff. So I like to show people all the other stuff that you don't see if you're just here for a weekend as a tourist. So I take them around to show them all the other stuff that tourists don't ever get to see. So it's my Boston, the stuff that I see every day, which is much more interesting to me than, and here's where Ben Franklin's buried. And here's, this is, so it's a historic city. And I just add another level of goofiness to it with all of my cities. Yeah, we and I went up to the North Shore, went up to Salem, and I showed you the castle up in Gloucester and all that crazy stuff. Yeah. Yep.
So it's the historic thing. And I've been to your house. You live in the top. of this huge house,
Yes,
and you
it
have
is a
all
huge house.
these rooms, but you can really only be in a couple of them. I mean, there's the
Well,
kitchen and the living room, and the other rooms seem to be full of like paintbrushes and
well, because
ladders, buckets.
well, it wasn't the ladders and buckets. I've actually cleaned up quite a bit, but
Oh my God.
I
Okay, good.
I worked in every room. So every room in my house, like we're in the former dining room, currently the TV room, where I paint the toys.
Right.
Next door is my office where I do the computer stuff. In the kitchens where I do my bookkeeping, I have a painting studio. I actually have a guest room now, an actual guest room,
I was
which
at
you
the
and
guest room.
Bob,
I was at the
which
guest room.
you and,
The guest
yeah,
room was
you and
lovely.
Bob stayed there,
Yes,
right?
the guest room.
And then so I have like 5 different spots in my house where I work, depending on what I feel like doing. So if I get bored here, I can walk over there and I can work on the computer. So yeah, it's a great studio space. I just walk around and dabble here and there, and do whatever I'm interested in that day or that minute.
There's other toys, like as I say, we got the pony and the ponies and stuff. But you've done all that, like the oh gosh, what are they? The little Funko Pop. You've done all of
Yes,
that. You painted
I've
everything.
done. Yeah, well, I'm a toy. I love toys. I've always been a toy collector.
House is
And
awesome, full of toys. Even in the guest room, it's like, oh my God, what is staring at me from the shelves? Yes.
yes, yes, it can be quite frightening if you're not used to it. Yeah, I've always collected toys. I used to have a huge toy collection that I sold when eBay was new. I just a room you couldn't even get in the room. I said, well, I got to get rid of this stuff. So it was all my toys from the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. So I got rid of all that. But since then, I've recollected a new collection. I can't help myself. So yeah, but the Funko Pop and all the kid robot toys and all these sort of art toys. So they make blank toys now that are for
The
artists.
Funko Pops are totally blank. They're little kitty
Yeah,
heads
they're
or
just
whatever,
white.
bears. And
Well, here, like this. Here, I'm going to paint this. It's an egg, a little egg toy, right? So I'm going to do something out. I don't know what. But this stormtrooper helmet
it's a
that I'm working on.
stormtrooper helmet. Yes.
Yeah, see, it was just white, and then I paint and draw on the whole thing. So much fun to do and very lucrative. So yeah,
So
so
things
I love.
a small child would do. You're like, you've got color pens and you're drawing on that's like one of those things you get when you're 8. It's a little plaster thing in the color pens. And
Exactly.
this is
And
your
I
job.
and I did, and I never stopped. I still do it. Right. I got it when I was 12, and I never stopped. So they do, yeah. So so I did the toys here, computer stuff there, paintings in the other room. I got it just like all these like Santa's workshop,
But yeah, no, you've been actually successful. You're known, and then you've met all these people, and you wound up doing album covers, and then art. Where you start doing a thing, what art of the album cover? Where you're like, I'm going to do a painting based on this album cover. But then people started calling you, going, well, as long as you're doing that.
Exactly. I've done 400 paintings of album covers for fun. And then
wait,
I started
400? 400?
I've done 400. Yes, I passed the 400 mark, 406 or something. Yes, I have done 400 paintings of album covers that I just like the covers. I did paintings of the Beatles or Barbra Streisand or whatever, and they're all on my website. And so but then a couple of years ago, I got a call from this guy who was producing an album, a tribute album for Biggie Smalls, and he was working with Puff Daddy and Ludacris and all these people, and they wanted to use my portrait of Biggie on the album cover. And that just opened the floodgates, and I've done, I think, 20 album covers since then for all kinds of bands, big and small. And I love it. It's sort of like, I always wanted to be an album cover designer, and who knew records are going to come back,
Right?
Yeah, I mean, I used to have like thousands of vinyl albums that I sold, but so now I'm doing album covers again for fun, which is great. I love it. So it's like, yeah, I had to just wait long enough.
You wait long enough, the Peter Max thing comes back, the albums come back, like the 60s and the 70s.
Yeah, the whole 60s that whole aesthetic has returned, very popular. People want it. And so, I was there when it first came around. I'm still here, so we're doing it. So yeah, it's really fun. I mean, I love doing it. It's great. It's just crazy.
Like you live long enough, whatever you're doing becomes popular again.
Exactly. You just have to wait. You have to be patient to wait long enough. And now I use the iPad and computers to generate a lot of my art. So I'm using brand new technology to do a style that's 50 years old. But hey, what the heck?
You're still doing the hands-on. I mean, I see you're still using
absolutely.
a brush and paint and pens
every day. Yes, every day. But the iPad and computers and paint and brushes, and it's all just a tool, And yeah, so and on the iPad you can create your own colors.
Oh,
I want to
see,
color.
you can
I want to
create your.
color.
They're not my colors, but you can have your own colors.
Yes, I want to color beyond purple. Oh, what's over there? Let's see what I can make over there. Yeah, you can tweak the. Uh, Unfortunately, they only are visible on screen. So when you print them, they just kind
Oh,
of go flat. But it's
because
like
you've created a color and
because
there's no ink for
it
that.
doesn't really exist, right? Yeah,
Can it
doesn't
be an
really exist.
NFT? Can you make an NFT then with
Yes,
the
I can
colors
make an
that don't
NFT.
exist yet? Yes, let's make it.
We can do, yes, absolutely, we can
So
do that. Yes,
when we do the Nelly painting as an NFT, can we sneak in a couple designer non-existent colors?
yes. Oh, I will. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because we'll scan that one and then we'll tweak it and we'll have some fun with it.
For the modern age, for the new version.
Exactly. Got to do the new version of it.
Insane.
Maybe we can animate it some. Maybe they could change.
Yes. No, I think
position.
it should move. I think it should be animated because you did the animated thing on the webpage for the Nelly flashy thing and stuff.
Right. Right. So yeah.
And
so
we got
could
complaints because it flashed at the wrong rhythm and people said, you're going to give me a seizure. You got to change your flashy thing. We're like, oops, God, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Oh, geez, sorry.
You kill people with your flashy thing on there. Yeah, it's like freaking out. Now the magazine stuff. When we started talking about the Laugh Factory. Now Laugh Factory Mini Club on Sunset, and I was there when it was tiny. When it was like in the room that had been like the refrigerator for the deli. What was the deli?
It's currently it's currently the website, the Laugh Factory that you and I met in is currently the entry hallway for the Laugh Factory. Now.
Right, that's it, right. And now the Laugh Factory is that whole corner, but there was the delicatessen, and the delicatessen had expanded in the other direction, so the Laugh Factory was the part of the refrigerator area they weren't using anymore.
I mean, there were how many? There were what, five tables in there?
Oh my God, it was so tiny. It was ridiculous. And Jamie Masada is an extremely colorful character in Hollywood, and everybody has a. You know what he is? He's the Rodney Bingenheimer of comedy.
Perfect.
I think that Rodney Bingenheimer is to rock and roll. Jamie Masada is to stand-up comedy. He's this bizarre character, and everyone has a Masada story, just like everyone has a Rodney Bingenheimer story. And he's always was there at the scene of.
Well, I spent a lot of time with Jamie, and I consider him a brother. I love the guy. Crazy. He's just one of the most. He did wonderful things for me. He was just the most amazing guy.
I mean, I met him when I was 10, for God's sakes. I mean, that's the whole thing. And of course, he always tells me, he's lied about his age so much. He's younger than me now. He, because he keeps making up these ages. Like, dude, you were at my 10th birthday party and you drove there.
Well, nobody knows where he's from, how old he is.
Where is he from? How old? No, it's all.
I don't even know. I don't even know. I lived in his house for the better on and off for the better part of 4 years. I don't even know where he's from.
And that's another whole people who've lived in Jamie Masada's house. That's a whole other. But yeah, that's why nobody realizes where is he? He's this mysterious character, but he was also so encouraging to me. I mean, when I first met him, he was trying to do stand up, and that was a whole bizarre train wreck thing.
And Jamie was doing comedy.
Oh,
I never knew that.
Like you think it would be.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah,
whatever nightmare you've ever had of the idea of Jamie doing stand-up, that was pretty much it. And so then he met these people and they said, well, we want you to actually run this little club. And it was like the Golden Lion, Leon d'Or in Beverly. And he turned out this was his thing. This was what he was meant to do. And next thing you know, it's the Laugh Factory. And it became huge. But he knew he would encourage people. And of course, he always had these great, it was like Yogi Berra and the freaking malaprops.
Oh God, absolutely.
He said that I was good at comedy. He said, because you can think on your feet.
Yes.
That's an important quality.
Well,
and people come to your show because the word of the mouse.
Yep. Well, he wanted to go.
Right.
Well, we were going to go to Vegas one night. He just wanted to go to Vegas. So we're going to get in the car and come on, we'll go to Vegas and we'll meet Gers.
We'll meet the Gers.
Going to meet Gers. Yeah, we're going to meet Gers.
These are all classic Jamie. But you worked for his magazine, Laugh Factory, which again became hugely successful. Another totally crazy project. Are you allowed to tell the story about the art director and the paste department?
I don't see why not.
Okay.
Sure.
Because because everything with Jamie is slightly off kilter.
So when I met Jamie, he had done one issue of the Laugh Factory.
Yeah, he just started the magazine. The Laugh Factory had just started. It was not the huge success it is yet.
He had done one issue, and he'd hired this fantastic illustrator out in the valley somewhere in a town that starts with the letter C, where they used to shoot cowboy movies in the. I can't remember the name of the time. Anyway, it was a fantastic illustrator, but he wasn't a designer, and he'd never put a magazine together before. So the first issue of the Laugh Factory kind of looked like, a train wreck, but the art was fantastic, and he was a great guy. So Jamie said, "Well, come out." So, and Warner Brothers was going to distribute it. So Warner Brothers wanted a real art director. So Jamie hired me. We met through a friend of mine, and I flew down to New York. We went to Warner Brothers. He introduced me. Okay, and they said, "Can you put this together?" Yep. So that was in August of 1984. And then I worked on it with him for a couple of months, getting the pieces together. I came out in October. And so I've never been to LA, never been to Hollywood. No, yeah, this is my first trip. So he said, "Okay, you're going to be working out in the valley with this guy who was the illustrator. He's got a little studio out there. He's going to let us use the studio in back of his comic book store." Right? So, okay. So we go out there, and the first day I'm there, he's very nice, and he's showing me all the art they have. But I realized, oh my God, we're so far behind schedule. This is crazy. So I say to him, "Can we get somebody in to help us?" Now, this is before computers, before desktop publishing.
Right, there's no desktop, yeah.
Everything was done by hand. This is 1984. Everything was still done by hand with the rubber cement and the wax and gluing it down. And it was just a horrible way to work, but that's what everybody did. So he said, "Yeah, I know a guy who could help us paste up the pages and put them together." Because we had like, I don't know, 48 pages to put together with this thing and like 3 days to do it. So, okay, great. So he called me. He's going to come in tomorrow. So we're working away. And about the middle of the afternoon, he says, "I have to take my clothes off." What? He said, "Well, I can't work with clothes on." So he gets, okay, so you're going to so he just stands up in strips and he's naked. And we're sitting in the studio.
Not strips down to a t-shirt and underwear.
He's naked. He's naked, sitting on he's on a chair. So I'm sitting on the floor on the chair, and he's on a stool on the chair, right? So every time I would turn around to ask him a question, I'm like, right there is, yeah.
And this is your first time in Hollywood, so you're like,
right. So I'm thinking, somebody put me up to this. I'm being punked. Is the candid camera here? Where's Alan Fun? Where's this is a joke, right? I'm thinking, oh, they're having fun with the kid from the East Coast, or they don't know. And so but it was real. So then and then the mailman comes in later in the afternoon, and he gets up and goes over to the counter naked and talking to the mailman. The mailman didn't even blink an eye. Nothing. Just, okay. So
it's just every day at his house. Yeah.
Just every day. The naked guy in the comic book store. And I'm thinking, I just like, oh my God. And I remember coming back to the club, and you were there, and telling you, "You're not going to believe this. I don't know if this is a joke or not, but I got a naked art director I got to work with out in the valley." The next day, we're working, and he's naked, I'm working, and the guy comes to help us. Now, mind you, putting together a magazine requires 4 hands. You're cutting and pasting the thing and hanging it up. Just
no computers, all cutting and gluing
all
and
hands and little pieces of paper, and you're gluing pictures to your hand, and you got rules hanging down. It was a very hands-on thing. So the guy comes in to help us, and God love him, but he only had one arm, and he goes, "Hi, nice to meet you." And he's only going, I'm thinking, well, how is this going to work? How can you possibly help us do this? And he didn't even know what he'd been brought in to do, so he couldn't help us.
Because I was going to say, you're thinking, well, wow, this guy must be really
he must be really good.
He must be a genius. This guy just doesn't go, whatever. I can't do it with 2 hands. And this guy, no, he had no idea. They just did show up.
So I got a naked art director and a one-arm paste-up artist, and I'm out in the valley in the middle of nowhere, thinking to myself, what have I got myself into? This is insane, absolutely insane.
See, the next thing you have to do is you have to write a movie, because this all has to go in it. This is hysterical. They're dying over this one. So now, shockingly, we are actually out of time. I know, right?
My God,
it's like insane.
You and I usually talk for 2 hours.
5,000 photos too. We can show.
Yeah,
so the website is
HowieGreen.com.
HowieGreen.com. That's easy to find. HowieGreen.com.
Instagram is just Howie Green.
And you do like painting of the day and stuff on your Facebook?
Yeah,
I
try to post something every day on Instagram, sometimes on Facebook, but always on Instagram. And it's a toy or a painting or a thing or something. I curate an interesting flow of images on my Instagram page. So yeah, it's fun.
Everything. And we are going to do a Nellie Oleson NFT. This is totally going to happen.
Let's do this. Yes,
with undiscovered, reinvented new colors.
Yes, with new colors.
You can't print anywhere. And it's perfect for an NFT because you can't print them. So it's
perfect. It's perfect.
Genius. All right, we will get to work on this. Thank you for coming on my show. I can't believe you haven't been on the show all this freaking time. So
I
there,
know.
finally, yes, finally you are here.
I'll be happy to come back and we can show pictures.
Visit his site. Visit, of course, bonnetheads.com, which he's responsible for as well. Thank you very much. And this is the Alison Arngrim Show, and I'm Alison Arngrim.
I found my way home.